what really differentiates you is you, right? Like, and I think too many people are so worried about, I'm the face. What's my moat? The years of content I've created, the brand equity that I've created. But that is like decades in the making, that if I started thinking about my moat from day one, I'd be like, what does make me different? But it was, now you're talking to me on year 12, 13. I know exactly what my moat is.
I'm Brandon Reed, and you're listening to Ready, Set, Startup, a podcast that brings you industry-tested perspectives from leaders working in all areas of the startup lifecycle, so you can learn from the wisdom that they've gained over years in their fields of expertise and apply it in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Let's get into it. On today's show, I'm talking with Steve Young, founder and CEO at App Masters. There are few people you can find on the internet who are more valuable in their niche than Steve is in his. He spent over a decade creating content and providing value in his sphere of influence online. The years of accumulated knowledge flow from Steve effortlessly, and it's clear he's mastered so much of what he's undertaken. Every topic we cover is packed full of practical insights that anyone in the startup world can benefit from, regardless of industry, product, or role. Steve always knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He started with bootleg mixtapes in elementary school, which a weird number of founders start with, and that matured into multiple side hustles while he worked a 9-to-5. But he was soon itching to take those side gigs off the sideline, and it wasn't long before he was all in on his new venture.
Dude, Brandon, first, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course.
Secondly, I sold cassette tapes when I was in elementary school in 6th grade. So I knew I kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I didn't know what that path would look
Cassette tapes,
like.
man, were you making your own mixes?
Bro, I was.
Yes, my man.
I was selling the ones, I think it was Naughty by Nature, if I can't remember.
Of course
but it was,
was.
all the explicit ones, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
You shouldn't have been selling to elementary school kids or listening to yourself. Yeah.
That's how you find your moat.
Right.
Or your differentiator.
That's good.
They can't buy it. So they got to buy it they got to bootleg it. But I didn't know what that journey would look like. And so went to college, did the 9-to-5, and a part of me was still itching to do my own thing. And I was always a side hustler. So I always had these little side projects, but it wasn't until really me starting the apps, right? And I did apps. So I do all apps related stuff, but I started apps in 2011, taught myself how to code. I already knew how to code a little bit, but made apps, coded them myself, started making some money. And I was only making about $500 to $1,000 a month with just this side hustle. But in 2013, I felt like, hey, I love podcasts about apps. I love listening to business related podcasts. I did not want to do one just on generic business stuff. So I thought, and then it hit me one day and I was like, oh, I have this app business. Apps are continuing to grow. Why don't I just do one on apps only? And so I started that podcast, and finally, because I wanted to do a podcast for the longest time, but finally that dawned on me, let's do that. And when I did that, I did it on the side again. And but people started reaching out to me for marketing help. And so I was like, great. 3 months in, Brandon, I signed my first consulting clients.
Cool.
And I was like, holy crap. And it was like a $5,000 bill. And I was like, that's great. Like, something's happening here. But really, and I think this is important, because I was listening to John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire, EO Fire. And he, in this first, I binged the first 20 episodes back to back. He had, people that I admired in the space, Pat Flynn, all these guys. And they kept saying, what was holding you back from becoming an entrepreneur? They all said fear. Brandon, this is 6 months in. I started the podcast in May, signed my first consulting client around August. And then in November, September range, there was some traction for the podcast. And hearing these entrepreneurs say it was fear, I had to peel back the onions. I never thought I was afraid of trying to go full time with this, but I was like, maybe that's why I've always done things on the side.
Yo, you were saying as they were saying that, you were identifying with that, saying that's what's going on with me.
I wasn't at first.
Okay.
Until I peeled back the onions, and I was like, maybe that's why I've always done side hustles, because I did try to go all in one time, and it didn't work. But maybe that's why I've always kept things on the side. So I turned to my wife and I was like, maybe I am afraid. Maybe I'm afraid of failing again. But now unlike the previous time when I try to go all in and try to apply for YC and all that stuff, I have some traction. I already had a consulting client. People are listening to the podcast. So I turned to my wife. I was like, hey, now I think it's time for me to quit again and not do this on the side anymore. And luckily we were in a financial situation where she could support us. So if I'd made no money, she could support us. But that's when I decided to finally go all in. And that was like a key moment for me, listening to John Lee Dumas and EO Fire.
Man, that's awesome. And that takes a lot of humility to ask that introspective question of, say, like, man, am I just afraid? And there can be so many other things intertangled with that, right? It doesn't have to just be fear that you had the opportunity to be financially supported if things didn't work. I mean, there's very real and practical things, but at the core, so often, as you heard with those entrepreneurs and felt with yourself, that it can start with fear, and that's important to address. Did you, when you went in 2013 and said, all right, this is what I'm doing now, I'm going all in, did you start that company, whatever you're doing there, even if it was, I'm forgetting what you said about if it was something on the side you were taking full-time or starting something new, did you go in with a co-founder or by yourself, and why'd you make that choice?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. All right, Brandon. I don't like partnerships. I think in the beginning, it's fear, right? If we even thought, let fear be the theme of this podcast, it's fear because you don't want to go out alone. You don't think you know enough. Maybe you need a partner. Maybe they'll keep you committed. Look, finding the right partner is like finding the right partner for your life, like getting married. Like, how much time do we really invest in that marriage? Years, right? We'd have to be together for date, live together. There's all these steps. But finding a co-founder, Brandon, we're like, let's have a call. Yeah. I really like you. Let's do it together. And it's like, I've had so many partnerships go wrong. I just don't believe in it. And I try to have co-founders, and I think it was just fear. No, so I wanted that alone. I started the podcast by myself. When I decided to quit. So the thing I want to make sure people know is I had the podcast. I had traction. I didn't just go all in without any signals, and I'm always looking for signals. So I had enough signals that said this should work, and obviously it did. So it was probably like launch the podcast in May, quit in December of that same year, and then went full-time on my own that next January.
Let's talk about how did you said there was some traction there. You had some people going on. You had that there was some product market fit happening.
Yep.
But how did you initially fund your business? I mean, was it just you were living off your wife's paycheck and whatever else was gravy that you were making, or how did you go get professional money? How'd you go about that?
No, I'll give you the exact numbers. So I made 125. This is 2013. Okay, so this is 12 years ago. Okay, so I don't even know what the going rate now is. But I made 125 when I was at the job.
Okay.
My first year on my own. That's 2013. 2014. I made 90,000 on my own. So I made less. But the thing that I was
not 10 grand or 15 grand. I mean, you can live off that. Yeah.
I was proud of myself. And you said find product market fit. I didn't find product market fit till 18 months after going on my own. Because that first year I had a consulting client too that was paying me about $4,000 a month. They left 3 months into me being on my own. And that's when I had to figure stuff out. And so I was doing a lot of stuff trying to figure out. I was trying to sell I was trying to do webinars and sell like $1,000 courses. And that was going okay. Everything was going okay until 18 months into my entrepreneurship journey. I went to Pat Flynn's event, One Day Business Breakthrough. And no offense to him, but I went there trying to be like, help me sell courses. So they gave me feedback. Their feedback, I threw it away. Why? Because they were trying to help give me, and somebody, it wasn't Pat, but somebody's like, I don't know what growth hacking means.
Yeah, right.
So take everything with a grain of salt. He doesn't know it, but I had a client that signed up because I said growth hacking. The person is not my target audience, right? So anyways.
You were there, raised a topic, like brought up a question or something, and the guy was like, I don't know what that is. And someone in the audience was like, I like the way you're talking about that.
No. Somebody previously, a month or two ago,
interesting.
I reached out, he reached out to me to work with us to be like, hey, I reached out to you primarily because I saw growth hacking on your website, right? That was a client telling me I like that. Some other advisor, entrepreneur that I admired said, I don't know what growth hacking is, so you shouldn't put that on your website. This is me just saying, be careful who you take your advice from.
Sure.
Right? But it was through that I actually found product market fit. From that event, I was like, what is actually working? And I was like, what are people actually asking me for? Listen to my audience. And what I like to say is I wasn't religious about how I was going to make money. So I said, everybody's asking me, help me with my app launch. So I killed all the courses. I got completely focused on help me with my app launch. And that's when things, in that 2014, we made 163. Now I was like, I made more by myself than I did, working for a job. And then the rest is history. Just kept going from there. But, that's why I say, like, it took me about 15 months to really figure out what I was going to actually be doing.
Interesting. And so you mentioned it a little bit, but what did you start doing? I mean, you mentioned kind of there was some serendipity that happened. Some people found some things on your website and resonated with it. But how were you actually going and finding, I think you said 160 or 190 or whatever, worth of business? I mean, at the beginning, how were you finding your customers? Yes, you were niching down. I love that. You said this is an area that clearly is a pain point for people. But then how were you getting in front of those people and saying, I'm a solution to your pain? How are you doing that?
Just through the podcast. Every single, we've generated millions, multiple millions of dollars through the business, and it's all been organic primarily. Like I've done little ads. I've tried testing and just never worked. It's all because people were listening to the podcast. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were listening to the podcast, loved and resonated with what you were saying, and they were like, hey, if he's talking about how to do this, I want him to do this for my app, my business. And wow, man, that's awesome. I love hearing that because I love products. Marketing is absolutely important in so many ways, and it's the right fit for a lot of businesses, but it's really neat to hear when people are able to strike such a chord, provide such value that you don't even have to market yourself. Like with the people that come across you, find you so valuable and your solution so enticing that they move forward with you. That's really awesome.
I would say, what you're doing now, I would say anybody that is trying to build their own consulting business, just share good content. Show people what you can do, how you do it. Most people will just hire you to do it then.
Awesome. So this is, I love this question because, my audience is primarily founders and they're all trying to do their thing. They're hearing from people who are where they want to be. And a lot of them are at this very important point that so many founders hit of, all right, I've worn every hat in the business. I'm willing this thing to life. And now it's getting some traction in, oh, I can't do this alone. Maybe I don't have enough hours in the day. Maybe I don't have the skill sets that I need to grow this business. Maybe a combination of both. And that's a really important inflection point that's super scary because people have to give up the margin that they've fought so hard for. They have to give pieces of that up, maybe even equity in the company. And that's a really important point. So walk me through that point in your business when you said, okay, this is too much for me. I need to bring somebody else in to help. And what roles did you look at first to fill and why?
It was from day one, we actually had people. And the cool thing, Brandon, is we're still working with the same people. The same people that helped me when this was just a side hustle are still the same people. Now she's the COO for one of them. And then the other one, she just was a VA, but now she's doing like podcast editing, YouTube posting, like she's doing a lot. So I would say the first hire you should make as a founder is just somebody who can manage projects for you, because you got the skill set to do everything else. You just need to make sure when things are due and then somebody to interact with the client. And that really helped out. And for me, I'm not very detailed. I am very detail oriented, but I'm not a great project manager. Like I don't love to live in the details, right? And so I had to find somebody who loved being in the details, who loved coming up with the SOP, who loved all these nitty gritty details. And that was Merge on my team. And she is now our COO. But that was the first hire and that changed the game a little bit. And so I was only paying them a little bit, but it helped out. Brandon, it really becomes like when you're like, crap, I can't keep doing this, right? Like I can make more money if I was doing this other thing versus doing this one thing that anybody can do it if I can just teach them how to do it. And that's how you start figuring out. But I think project management is probably one of the first hires.
Awesome. Yeah. An important thing to realize, important moment, I think, in any founder's journey to realize that. What is, we talked about your moat earlier with your thriving cassettes business. What about your real business, your adult business? How did you start to carve out a moat for yourself? How did you make yourself defensible, differentiate yourself from people doing similar things? It's a crowded space. How'd you do that?
I think it's, I think about this and I think it's a very popular term that in my humble opinion doesn't mean shit. Okay. What really differentiates you is you. Right? And I think too many people are so worried about, I'm the face. What's my moat? What makes me indefensible? The years of content I've created, the brand equity that I've created. But that is like decades in the making, that if I started thinking about my moat from day one, I'd be like, what does make me different? But it was now you're talking to me on year 12, 13. I know exactly what my moat is. I'm the most affordable, most effective app marketing agency. That is my differentiator. This is my mission. Too many agencies charge a boatload, bloated services, all for what? Nothing, right? And no matter how big you are, Brandon, you're always going to think about the bottom line and costs. So that's why I have affordable. Why I have effective? Because I've seen other agencies just do inefficient work and charge a boatload for inefficient work. But that was 14 years to kind of figuring out what to do to be like, oh, in year 1 to 5, I'm just trying to make a freaking living, dude. I'm not trying to care about moat. I'm just trying to hustle and make some money, right? And keep this dream, entrepreneurial dream alive. That's really just it.
Yeah, and I mean, I hear that. I hear what you mean by like, man, the moat is not. It's not important to focus on that. But I think you were doing that without even realizing it isn't. It's critically important, but maybe not. Man, you just have probably the mindset and the how you go about things that it wasn't important for you to focus on. But things you were doing were differentiating you. And if you didn't, if your brand, if you're personal, you're like, hey man, it's me, it's my years of content. If those years of content would have been like everybody else, you would have just mixed into oblivion with everybody else doing this. But you differentiate yourself from the beginning with what you were saying, how you were saying it, the things you were thinking about doing, and those were all differentiators. But I think what you're saying is like it came to you really naturally, like doing things differently, and that moat created itself.
Exactly. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I think I talk to, young entrepreneurs and they're like, what is my moat? And they'll spend a day thinking about it. Like, bro, fucking go figure it out. Like, go do the work and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Interesting. So as you're continuing to establish the company, build it, what are some one or a few big bets that you had to take early on, Steve, that were risky, that really stepped you out on the ledge, and what gave you the confidence to take those risks, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So, dude, there's a couple of stories, and you stop me if I'm going too long. But one story was I hired somebody internally. So we made $50,000 in 1 month. I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Things are going to go insane right now. And it didn't sustain, right? And so I hired somebody in the US, paid her $8,000 a month, and my cash flow just completely crashed. Where to the point where I had to take out a loan through PayPal. It was the easiest way because I just need like $10,000, right? I just need to float the business for a couple of months. And I did that. So I was like, I'm never making that mistake again, right? And so most of our...
What would you define that mistake as?
Thinking that things were always going to be good. And then hiring somebody from the US being like, oh, they're way better than anybody from any other country.
Okay.
Which, like, yeah, to a certain extent, but ultimately people are people and people are smart everywhere. So that was the big mistake, thinking that this good stuff was going to last for a very long time. And then the other big bet wasn't a really big bet, but I did make a bet. I started this company called Copy Masters. And this was like, and thank God we sold it, but like this was like unlimited blog posts, right? Like we'll write blog content for you, unlimited content creation. Because I saw like Design Pickle, I saw Video Husky, I saw these services, they're called, I guess the term might be service as a service, but essentially instead of software, you're providing a human service and charging on a SaaS model, so retainer. So I started noticing that, and I started Copy Masters thinking that was going to feed the future. And I was like, okay, cool. But App Masters is always project-based. And then eventually I was like, Copy Masters is doing about $1,000 a month, like barely breaking even, maybe make a little bit of profit. But I'm like, this isn't what I want to do. And plus, I'm known in the app space, Brandon. Why don't I just take this entire like pricing model and put it into the app space, not this copywriting space? Dummy, I'm talking to myself. And when I did that in 2020, that's when everything completely changed. Business was more predictable. We were on a retainer now. So I took everything that we were doing in a $4,000 package and I said, you know what? I'm going to charge you $500 a month. And I'm just going to make a bet that you're just going to pay me more than $4,000. Yes, I'll have to maybe wait a year. Maybe I have to wait 6 months, but eventually you're just going to pay me more. And that bet was right because now at $500, it's less risk to them. So now we're bringing in more clients and then we have the opportunity to keep more clients happy. So they end up paying us more than $4,000. So our LTV on a project base was just $4,000. But our LTV on this new model is much more than that now. So that was one of the bets, but it took failures to get to a bet paying off.
So let's continue to talk through kind of as you're building the company. You talked a little bit about needing to take a quick loan to float. But did you ever have to take any like cash infusions? Did you ever go and raise?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kept 100% of the company.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Man, the more I learn and talk with entrepreneurs on the show, the more I learn that that is like a real badge of honor, like to figure out a way to make it happen and not go give pieces of your company away. Sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes that's even the right choice, but it's really awesome and a huge commendation when you can do that. So how did you, as you were continuing to grow, hire people into your company, as we discussed, how were you able to kind of maintain your initial vision for the company and foster the culture that you wanted as you grew and more people got involved?
Yeah, I think that's been the hardest part, as now we're a team of 30. Look, when it was a team of 5, that's easy. Like, you just hire the right people, work with them, cycle through. It was easy to make sure the culture was sound. When you get to 30, that's when it becomes hard. And what we're going through, so I wouldn't say I have a complete answer yet, but I have a 80%, 70% sure that this is the right direction. It's putting together numbers. Right? You know, everybody does this, right, Brandon? Like, I used to work for a big company. And I was like, why do they do this stuff? Like, I don't like it. The KPIs, right? I'm like, what the? And then now you're at the side, you're like, oh, I get it, right? Like, I get
Things
it.
need to be measurable.
Something measurable that says this person is doing a good job. Because if you keep it too abstract, you're never going to know if they're doing a good job or not. All we hear is, hey, this client canceled because the results weren't there.
Right.
Why weren't the results there? We weren't tracking it. Yeah.
Right.
And so, anyways, we had to change our mindset from being more task oriented and project and delivering task or projects to more results oriented, because ultimately that's what they're paying for is results.
Yeah, interesting. And so keeping that focus on results, is, you said you don't have a complete answer drawn yet, but that's something that you're learning, of like focusing on results can keep that culture intact and ensure that your vision for your company remains solid.
Yeah, and for us it's easy. Like, each one of our team members has a number associated with it. They have an X amount of clients. They know how much downloads each client is getting. They know how much money each client's making. So now we can see month over month, are they growing or not? And we can just say, look, are you doing a good job or are you doing a bad job? They know, we know now too.
Yep, and expectations are set of like what good job and bad job means, and so everybody can be on the same page. Let's shift into a part of the show that I love. These are specific questions geared at, really, I want to pull some knowledge out of you from your hard-earned lessons to provide some real practical things that founders can sink their teeth into and help maybe apply in their own businesses. So one would be, we're on this vein, so I want to stay in it, of hiring. What would be one piece of advice that, as you have kind of navigated those waters of hiring, that you would have for founders who are right in that space and about to take that step, or just now, that you've learned over the years of your lessons in hiring?
Really, honestly, train them. Like, extreme ownership. You know, there's a book
Extreme
called
ownership,
that.
I like that.
There's a book by the same title, but it comes to you. It's your fault, Brandon. If they're not doing a good job, it's your fault. You ultimately hired them. You ultimately were in charge of training them. You ultimately were set the KPIs so they know they're doing a good job or not. And you need to. So for me, really focusing on the first couple of months of training, making sure I have the interaction and training them the right way. Because as I've grown to 30, now there's middle management, so to speak, that's training them. I'm not training everybody. And that's where quality just went to shits. So I had needed to do a better job of making sure they're trained. And then, I mean, that's really it. And then firing fast. Like, you know, the adage that everybody says, hire slow, fire fast. It is so true. And it's just, you keep giving people chances. Like, we keep people like it's people, right? We're a people business. We care about people. That's one of our core values. And ultimately we gave them too much time. And so it's like, look, if we did everything we can, we trained them, we spent a lot of time with them, we gave them knowledge. If they keep making mistakes, we got to let it go. And what I really hire for is motivation and drive, not skill. If I know you're motivated and I know you got the drive, I can teach you anything. Right? That's how we became entrepreneurs, because we had the motivation and drive. Do we know everything? No, but we have the drive to learn and to grow. And if they have that, I can teach them anything, really.
I love it. How about, as we talk about or think about operating your business, what would be a truism, something you go back to often, is this gospel truth that consistently proves itself out as you operate your business? That's like a principle that you seem to live by.
Dude, we just started doing this earlier this year because of all the quality issues I was seeing. Daily stand-ups, honestly, it's a must. It keeps everybody honest. It doesn't have to be long. It could be 15. Sometimes it's like 5 minutes. Hey, y'all need anything? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? That's it.
Are you involved in the daily stand-ups?
I am. And then now I feel like my team has a cadence. So I'm going to pull back and see how they do when I'm not there. And then I'll come back in if I see issues. Then I got to fix their daily stand-ups. But that's been a game changer for us.
Cool. Awesome. How about thinking about scaling, growing? You've seen a lot of growth in your company, a lot of success. What's a word of caution that you would offer to founders who are entering into that process of, all right, we got some traction here. We're growing, we're hiring, we're bringing on bigger accounts. What's something that you've learned over the years that could provide a word of caution to founders also in that step?
Don't think just because things are going right, that's going to stay good the whole time, right? And things are going bad, don't think it's going to stay bad the entire time too. And so things fluctuate. So like know the numbers, know the year over year. Like I never paid attention to the numbers. I just saw my bank account and I was like, as long as that's growing, I'm cool, right? Like I keep it very cash. But now when I know the numbers, I can start seeing trends. And so we're operating 3 different businesses now. And like in April, I saw a down month, but I saw it across the board. And I saw it across the board with all the clients that we work with. Mostly they were all down. So I was like, okay, no need to panic here. Everybody's down right now. It's a down month, March and April, right? We're done with the New Year's push. So now it's like this little like weird months. And then now we're back up in June and May. And I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't need to be. So I think it's just being careful. And for me, like I talk to a lot of people, founders that like things are going so well and they just like throw more and more at it. And then they're like, whoops, thing went bad. And now they're out of money, right? And so really being careful with the scale.
What about, can you identify a failure that still stings, Steve? What'd you ultimately learn from that?
I think honestly that sting of like hiring somebody when I was paying them $8,000 a month because I thought everything was going to go, it still stings because I had to take out a loan, right? To just float myself. And there's so much self-doubt that came like, oh man, I'm really not good at this, right? This entrepreneurship thing. I screwed things up. And so you think like, oh crap, I just need a loan. But it's like all this other internal self-doubt that comes to your mind, be like, I'm really not good at this. And then also like one thing that I was doing too, Brandon, was comparing myself to others. You know, throughout my journey, like I'm like, life is good. I'm living the entrepreneurial lifestyle. Money is good. And then I would see somebody else blogging or podcasting about how well they've done. I'd be like, damn, I suck. Like, how come I'm not growing as fast as them? And it just like dawned on me. I was like, you know, and I would make decisions based off of their success and be like, no, I got to try harder. I got to do things differently. And ultimately I've come to a point in my life where I'm like, congratulations, you're doing that much? Great job. I'm good. You know, as long as my stuff is taken care of, that's all that ultimately matters. But it came through like a lot of turmoil. And, you know, somebody listening to this, you can hear it, but not unless until you go through it yourself, that's when the final lessons really hit home too. So hopefully you don't have to go through it. Just listen. Right? Yeah,
just listen. Yeah, I mean, that's when you were saying it. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is man, that's easier said than done. You really have to come. That's your own process to come to. Of like, how do you get good with yourself and be satisfied with what's enough for you and not for someone else? Did you mention? Did I hear you mention that you had sold a company? So have you exited before?
Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, I've got a few little exits here and there. So nothing.
Awesome. I mean, let's talk about that just even a little bit. What's something that you wish you knew when you were first navigating those waters? Those are new to everybody. No one's exited a company when they first do it for the first time. I mean, what's something that you can share there for other founders in a similar part in their journey?
Yeah. So really have your finances in place.
Yep.
And then make sure that if you're thinking about exiting, that you've kind of like taken things aside, like making sure, meaning like just from the business line. Cause you know, as we as entrepreneurs, like what I did was I had one business and that's it. Everything ran through that one LLC. And now I've gotten smarter where now we have 3 different LLCs. We purchased a company last year.
Smarter as in like more legally sound?
More legally sound so that, you know, the company we purchased last year, we can sell off. And so that has its own P&L, that has its own thing. And then we have 3 or 4 different lines of business, but each thing has its own thing. It takes a lot longer as the deal size gets bigger.
Right.
It's going to take a lot longer to exit. And so just understand that as you're working on a 7-figure deal, it's going to take maybe 6 months to a year to ultimately close it out.
Yeah.
And never stop operating the business, Brandon, as if it's your own until the money's in the bank.
Oh, you mean, so don't let your hands off the reins. Like even if there's discussions, those exit discussions are happening. Those
You'll
sales
get an
discussions.
LOI, you get a purchase agreement, you get all the back and forth stuff, and still the business might not go through. The sale might not go through. So if you took your eye off the ball, then, now you're stuck with it still.
That's really good, man. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying. I have a couple different things going on, and from the beginning, I'm trying to set it up in the right way, both legally protected and ultimately, if just like you said, if I wanted to spin things off. But it's complicated, it's time consuming, and it's expensive to do it that way, man. It's like several sets of books, like you said, multiple P&Ls, like you're filing multiple tax returns. But and there's pieces of that are good and bad, but it's helpful to think of it as a scalable way right from the beginning, if you can, for sure.
I mean, here's what I do. Like, it's a moment, what I always say is a moment in time. It took me 10, 11 years to start separating. I need, like a lot of times I think the biggest mistake founders make is they think too big. They think the destination is going to happen already before putting in the work, right? So once you're at a point where you're like, man, things are coming in, I better start separating so I can figure out ways to sell it. Then you do it, right? I don't think you need to do it right from the very jump. Yes, does it make things more complicated later on? Sure. But how many people do exit their business? How many people ever reach 6 figures, 7 figures? Very low, like especially 7 figures, very low percentage, right? And so like you're working, it's already uphill battle. So make sure it's no longer, you're not going uphill. And now you're like a plateau or even at a growth stage that you're like, okay, now is the right time for me to get complicated and have 3 different LLCs and all this other stuff. So.
Yeah, and the worst version of that is overcomplicating it such that you don't move forward or don't get started. You're like, man, that's just too much. Like, I'm not gonna. I love that too. Yeah. I got a couple closing questions here for you, Steve. When you speak with other entrepreneurs, which I know you do a lot, what's a question that you get asked the most, and then what's a question that you find them not asking but they should be?
I mean, the question I get most is like, they're always wondering how I did it, or like, tell me about what, and I think what I've learned is it doesn't matter how you do it. You just have to do it. Right. And I'm seeing a lot of posts from like Alex from OZ. He's like talking about like, it's entrepreneurship is like the first place. It's just it's the last man standing. Right. It's not the fastest. It's just the last man standing. And that's what I've sort of learned, that as I keep doing this, things keep growing. The brand keeps growing. Now it's like less work finding new clients and more work just making sure that the current clients and the clients that you're doing are done. So I think that is the questions. Like, they're like, what should I do here? And I'm like, I don't know. Right. Like, they're like, what should I do? How do I grow this thing? Like, go figure it out. Right. Talk to your users. And then I guess the question that they don't ask is like, instead of asking, what should I do here? Be like, what did you do that helped and that is applicable to everybody? And ultimately for me, Paul Graham said it best, like, do things that don't scale. Talk to your users. That's how I built the business. They told me what they wanted from me. Build the platform first, build the audience first. They will tell you what they want from you. They will tell you, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I hear that really often of like the people take a long time to learn that go and ask the people that you're actually building the solution for if it's the right solution. Like if you're actually building the right thing and if they actually want it and if they actually pay for it. Yep. And that can save you a lot of trouble. Imagine that you woke up at the start of your career. You have all the knowledge and experience that you have now, but you were just right there at the beginning. How do you spend that first week of your fresh start?
Done. If it's B2B, even if it's B2C a little bit, but definitely B2B, it is content. It in focused on whether I love YouTube and I love LinkedIn, especially if you're B2B, YouTube and LinkedIn, done. Like there, and maybe Twitter. But for the app space that I'm in, Twitter is pretty big too. So that's number 3. But start creating content. I gave this advice, Brandon, to somebody that was on my podcast. And she's like, Steve, how did you get started? What did you do? I was like, I just create content. I just shared what I knew and how I do things. And then literally after that call, I started seeing posts. I didn't connect the two, by the way. I just started seeing her post on LinkedIn a lot. And I was like liking it. And then I was commenting. These are good stuff. And she was just posting like news related stuff. Hey, Google just launched this. Apple just launched this. This is how it's going to impact you. And then here's how we do ASO, blah, 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 right? And she flies, a few months later, she flies out to London. She's from Israel. She comes up to me and said, Steve, I only flew out just to say thank you in person. I was like, nice. Tell me more. And she's like, well, I took your advice. I started creating content on LinkedIn. And now I have more clients than I can actually, service. Mm-hmm. That advice completely changed the game for me. and I just want to thank you in person. I was like, holy cow. So that's what I would do. Just create content, share your knowledge. I love YouTube, especially if you're good on camera. Just do YouTube. You build that inherent trust. Like they already see you. So when you jump on Zoom for that initial call, they're like, oh, it's Brandon. Hey, Brandon. Like, I love your content, man. Like, that's what I hear. And it's like so fulfilling and so heartwarming that I'm like, okay, cool. And now my sales guy, who I've hired, he's like, Steve, I've done sales job. This is one of the easiest sales jobs I've ever had because they're already coming in with an embedded trust to you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Last question for you here, Steve. What's one tool or quote or book, something that you found indispensable to your personal professional progress?
Brandon, Steve Young special, okay? Here we go. What are you going to regret more? That's pretty much it. Not doing it or doing it. What are you going to, anytime you're in a fork in the road, like, what are you going to regret more? And that's really what I live my life through. Will I regret not doing this and failing? Most people regret things that they did not do in their life, right? So can you fast forward yourself to your 80-year-old self, your 90-year-old self, and look back on your life? And the things that you're going to think about regret is the things that you didn't take a chance on. At least if you took a chance on it and it didn't work, you know it didn't work, or you can figure out how to make it work. But if you never took that chance, then you'll never know, and you'll just live with that regret.
I love it. I love it. Steve, this is really, really great. I appreciate you taking the time in. This is invaluable insight. You've been doing what you've been doing for a long time and at a really high level. This is really, really helpful wisdom that founders can take a lot from. So thanks for sharing, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. You take care. If you guys enjoyed the show, leaving a review is the best way to help others find it. Second only to sharing it directly with your friends and family. Thanks so much for helping get the word out. Hit me up at brandon@readysetstartuppod.com. If you have additional questions about a topic I covered, have suggestions about another area you'd like to see me dig into, or just want to say hi, please reach out. I'd love to get in touch. Keep imagining, keep creating, keep inspiring your spheres of influence with what you're passionate about. The world may just need that dream that's in your head. See you next time.